Well, Bennett Kessler filed this story. In years past, Whiskey Creek restaurants in Bishop and Mammoth were kind of the place to go. Now, no more. As of last Friday, owner Greg Alexander closed the doors of both restaurants. Something like 100 people between the two businesses have lost their jobs. Alexander said losses in Mammoth brought down Bishop. Now, when they heard the news, local residents said they were sad about more depressing news. Whiskey Creek Bishop was a favorite watering hole and dinner house back in the 1970s when Sam Walker rebuilt the Kitty Lee Inn. Walker also opened Whiskey Creek Mammoth until he sold both to Greg Alexander about 15 years ago. Now, 2 years ago, Alexander invited a room full of local business owners to the Bishop restaurant, where he explained at great length how he had lost the Mammoth business due to real estate machinations and then leased it back. Alexander also described a new remodel then underway in Bishop. It all sounded hopeful and even reminiscent of the older and cozier Whiskey Creek of the 70s, which was complete with fireplace, lots of carpet, cushy booths, and the most popular bar in town back then. Now, the last 2 years did not realize the hope anticipated. Alexander had let the word out that he planned to shut things down on January 24th. He lost his lease to Mammoth Brewing, and that will move into operations in the old Whiskey Creek Mammoth. We'll have a story on that on a later broadcast. Now, Alexander told Sierra Wave Media that both restaurants are in a C corporation and could not be separated easily. He said, quote, "The losses in Mammoth brought down Bishop," end quote. Now, Alexander called the Bishop restaurant, quote, "a good standalone. We were planning only to be in Bishop, but decided to spend one more winter in Mammoth. We really haven't had a good winter in 4 years," end quote. The restaurateur said the Mammoth shop was down $200,000 in January. He said, quote, "I didn't feel like keeping Mammoth open one more winter was a big risk. That was my Achilles heel," end quote. Alexander explained that his company, High Sierra Hospitality, bought the stock of Whiskey Creek Incorporated, which included the Bishop and Mammoth restaurants and Angel's restaurant. He said creditors can come after Bishop for Mammoth's obligations, not a financially sustainable situation, Alexander said. He also named the rim fire and government shutdown as big problems last fall and pointed to the current occupancy rate in Mammoth at 32% for the weekend. He also noted that there is, quote, "far more competition in Mammoth now. You have to see those things out. The village is right behind me," end quote. Now, when Sierra Wave Media talked to Alexander, he had just finished an hour-long sit-down with Whiskey Creek founder and holder of a note on the business, Sam Walker. Said Alexander, quote, "Sam said he was sorry. It was bad luck," end quote. Overall, Alexander said people were very kind on the dark day of closure. With hope hard to muster, Alexander said, quote, "We may work at trying to revive this. People are already inquiring," end quote. Meanwhile, Greg Alexander, the Bishop Union High School boys varsity soccer coach, wants to stay in Bishop for his family. Well, Bennett Kessler has filed a series of stories on the drought situation in the Eastern Sierra. And at the heart of the Inyo supervisor's agenda Tuesday, a resolution that would officially declare a local drought emergency. Now, on the same note, the Water Department wants direction on how to work with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power to develop drought plans. Now, the Drought Proclamation is a 3-page document listed as item 13 on the agenda. It says that there are, quote, "conditions of extreme peril to the safety of persons and property," end quote, within the county caused by the condition of drought. The document points to the governor's declaration of emergency and the low snowpack in the Sierra. Now, DWP's website shows the hallmark snowpack of Mammoth Pass now even with the driest year on record, the 1976-77 snowpack. DWP's snow pillow readings of the snowpack show Mammoth Pass at 15% of normal to date. Rock Creek at 34%, South Lake 33%, Big Pine Creek 13%, and Cottonwood Lakes at 33%. Now, Inyo County's Drought Proclamation named other factors. Runoff to the Owens Valley was 50 to 60% the past 2 years. The Owens River is now flowing at 40% of its January average. Bishop Creek flows at 39%. Now, they also named the dried up wells, ditches, and ponds in Bishop, low precipitation, and impacts on agriculture and tourism. Now, the proclamation calls on DWP to work with officials, ranchers, and others to develop plans to manage water, including the Great Basin Air Pollution Control District. Now, item 14 on the agenda says the Inyo Water Department wants direction on how to work with DWP on drought response and recovery plans. The Water Department also seeks direction on an agenda for the Inyo Los Angeles Standing Committee, which meets February 7th in Independence. The Mono County Board of Supervisors do not meet this week, but will meet again on February 4th. Now, as the Owens Valley scrambles for some kind of protection in the apparent drought, Mono Lake protectors have some good news: definite terms in the state water license for the LADWP. Now, Jeff McQuilkin, executive director of the Mono Lake Committee, said the license spells out that both sides can read the lake level, and accordingly, the license tells an allowed amount of water export for DWP. Said McQuilkin, quote, "There is no room for debate. This has always been followed," end quote. Now, in spite of protections, the Mono Lake director called the drought depressing. He said the level of Mono Lake is going down. Said McQuilkin, quote, "This will be the third year of loss," end quote. He said the lake now sits at 6,380.5 feet above sea level. Now, according to the license, DWP water exports are cut back when the lake level goes below 6,380 feet. McQuilkin said if the lake level is above 6,380 feet, DWP can export 16,000 acre feet for the year. Now, if that level goes below that, the export drops to 4,500 acre feet. Now, the goal of a state order and reduced exports from the Mono Basin is a long-term average lake level of 6,392 feet. McQuilkin said the committee has not lost faith. He said they see the level go up in wet years. Now, the recently signed agreement between DWP and the committee says DWP will make more environmental improvements in the basin, and after that is done, we'll get a one-time extra 12,000 acre feet of water. McQuilkin said that's 4 or 5 years out. Now, what if DWP declared a municipal emergency and tried to break the water license? McQuilkin said he thinks they would be unsuccessful. He said, quote, "We would certainly oppose that. That would enter a risk zone and air quality issues," end quote. Now, meanwhile, Southern California Edison has started talks with the DWP on solutions to management of Bishop Creek drainage water, and Mammoth officials say they will keep a sharp eye on their water supplies. Manager Pat Hayes said the water board is, quote, "looking at a range of scenarios," end quote. Now, in response to the governor's drought proclamation, Inyo supervisors wrote a letter to LA to say they would support DWP demands on the Owens Dry Lake, but want 1/3 of water saved from dust control to stay in the Owens Valley. Now, local reactions were mixed. April Zerlak, air quality coordinator for the Lone Pine Tribe, said the Inyo board's willingness to relax dust controls will impact communities around the dry lake. She said, quote, "LA created a dust bowl and must take the responsibility until it is remedied," end quote. Now, in a closely guarded statement, Edison public relations man Bill Delane told Sierra Wave Media that Edison is working, quote, "collaboratively with LADWP to find solutions on water management in the Bishop Creek area," end quote. He said the ultimate goal of talks will be to achieve a solution of effective management of available water. Delane refused to comment on Edison's responsibilities in the drainage or anything else except that Edison and DWP are talking. Inyo supervisors Rick Pucci and Linda Arcularius plan to be talking with LA Mayor Eric Garcetti or someone from his office today in Los Angeles. We'll be back with more news.